Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. Today, our host, Coach Preston Peterson, interviews a high school strength coach who is creating a big time strength conditioning experience for their student athletes. Today's episode is sponsored by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr provides strength conditioning software to athletics programs around the country. Whether you write your own programs or want access to over 100 templates, TeamBuildr can make your program more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's effort in the weight room. Visit their website and start a 14-day free trial at TeamBuildr.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, and welcome to another Big Time Strength Podcast episode. This week, we interview Coach Graham Lundt. Coach Lundt is the head strength and conditioning coach at Gilbert High School in Gilbert, Iowa. Coach has been there 8 years and has prior stops along the way. Coach is on another level with his organization, how he implements his programs, the way that he inspires the athletes to do more by building relationships, and much more. I'm excited for you guys to meet Coach Lundt. He has a ton of great information, and I cannot wait to bring him back on the show to learn more about his summer programs. This episode is also sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. Athletes train hard to play at the highest level, and all that hard work raises the need for muscle recovery. Optimum Nutrition's athletic programs has industry-leading products that can help. Protein is key to muscle recovery, and Gold Standard 100% Whey, the world's best-selling whey protein powder, provides 24 grams of protein that mixes easily using just a glass and spoon. Gold Standard 100% Whey is made in Optimum Nutrition state-of-the-art facilities in Aurora, Illinois, and is a banned substance tested by Informed Choice. Through Optimum Nutrition's athletic program, you can also get Pro Gainer for athletes who are looking to become bigger and ready to eat protein snacks, including protein crisp bars, cake bites, protein wafers, and protein almonds. After dominating the sports nutrition industry for over 30 years, newly created Optimum Nutrition Athletics brings the same trust and quality that knows how to put convenient options for protein in the hands of athletes who desire to become bigger, stronger, and better at their sport. Thank you to Optimum Nutrition for sponsoring today's show. And thank you for Coach Graham Lundt for coming on the show. Coach, thanks for coming on over your spring break, man. This is awesome to have you just be able to pick your brain and just talking before the show, just the amount of stuff that you're willing to share and so that others can learn about your program. I'm just really excited for our listeners to get to know about Gilbert Tigers and everything that you're doing on every level, just what you're doing in the health class, what you're doing in your strength and conditioning classes, what you're doing during the summer, just a lot of things that you're doing just to make your Gilbert Tigers better and getting that buy-in from student athletes that it just seems like it's next level stuff. And I kind of want to start out by just asking you, how did you get where you're at? What's the background that kind of set you up to be successful where you are now? And maybe some of the things that you want others to know about you at the beginning of the show here.
Well, Coach, thanks for having me on. I mean, this is a pretty cool deal. What you and Coach Rozier are doing, and I know I've enjoyed from the beginning listening, and so hopefully there's some things today that people can take away to their own program. But growing up, I grew up a farm kid in Northwest Iowa, Sioux City area. Went to school there, went to Bishop Heelan, went to college in Northwest Iowa as well, and then took my first job in Northwest Iowa at Akron-Westfield. So hadn't really been out of the Northwest Iowa area until coming here. Took my first job and graduated with degree in health and PE and was a 612 PE coach there. Taught a little health, head football coach, head girls track, and strength coach. So we had some nice years there, had some good times, great relationships. But, I was a young guy when I was there, so that was pretty busy for a 25-year-old kid. And, I wanted to kind of venture out of Northwest Iowa when you were there for 25 years. So, interviewed for springtime, 8 years ago and took this one at Gilbert. And here I am 8 years later. And I love the area that I'm at. My wife and my 3 kids now love the area. So we've got a roots pretty deep here. And so I don't have a traditional, background like yourself. You GA'd there at Northwest, an intern there. And so what I found out from listening to, all these podcasts and others is that everybody's got their own unique route to get to where they're at. And so hearing those stories are really cool about how just they got from point A to point B.
So all those things that just kind of lead you to where you're at now, it's amazing. Maybe just the background that just sets you up to be where you're at and to do the things that you're able to do. And I don't know, before the show started, you were talking about your upbringing, your wife's upbringing, and kind of how that plays into your life now. You want to talk maybe just a little bit about that before we kind of get into what your program looks like and some of the things that you're doing that way?
Yeah, so my wife and I are both farm kids. I'm actually in South Dakota right now. Here on spring break, and my wife and I grew up from very humble backgrounds, where we, our families watched their pennies pretty close, understood the value of hard work, and simplicity and simple life. Like on the farm, in-laws are dairy farmers, so they had to wake up early in the morning, milk cattle, and then do the same thing that evening. And same thing in my own household, or growing up. Just the value of hard work and going out and walking beans and baling straw and waking up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, and then not getting in till late at night. And so those are things which the family farm's kind of going away a little bit, and so that's something my wife and I hold kind of near and dear, is just that work ethic of each day. There's a job to do, there's work to be done, and it's something that, like I said, we just hold near and dear, to us, and hopefully we'll instill into our kids, and hopefully the same thing true instill into the program there at Gilbert, that we want to come and we want to work every day. There's a job to be done. We want to be efficient with our time, because we only got so much daylight, and daylight's burning. So
that's great stuff, Coach. And I think it's very important for others to know your background and get a feel for where you're coming from with stuff, just because I think it plays into your larger role now as a strength coach. And can you kind of start out with, I suppose, the program's mission statement and some of the core values, some of those values that you're trying to instill within your student athletes, that you're going to be able to see a reflection of what you're teaching in their lives later on?
Yeah, so our mission statement is, we're committed to, giving the kind of ultimate training experience to each student athlete. We want to build a complete athlete while reducing the risk of injury. We want our atmosphere safe and disciplined, and then develop those strong strong relationships along the way with each athlete. That's really the cornerstones of what our program is. And really those words mean nothing. I mean, we got them on a website, but they mean nothing without action. And so really what our program is, the whole goal, the whole mission, can be simplified down into three things, and that's reduce, improve, and educate. And we want to reduce injuries, we want to improve performance, and we want to educate for lifelong health. Like, for example, reduce injuries. One thing we've tracked over time is ACLs and ACL injuries. That's, it's the three-letter word you don't ever want to hear. And over the past 8 years, there's been 3 tears from what we would deem as committed athletes, those that would train all year long. We've had more than that, but those that have trained all year long, we've only had 3. One was a contact ACL, which isn't as common, and another one was from a family who have 6 total ACL tears in their family. So we've seen, hopefully minimize their risk of injury there. And we do our 3P testing. We do some other stuff too, which I can get into later. But then we also keep track of concussions along the way, and it has decreased, but we're only a couple years in really to tracking that information and how that's tracked. But number one, we want to reduce injuries, because it's no fun being on the sidelines. That's why kids are out for sports. They want to play. Improve performance. So while we're in there, we want to get better. And so we want a stronger, quicker athlete, one that can react faster. And then the last one is educate for lifelong health. And at some point, every single athlete's got to retire. For some, it's after their sophomore in high school. For some, it's after they graduate as a senior. Some, it's after college. But at some point in time, they are going to have to go off and train on their own. And so we want to educate for lifelong health, physically being in there, but also sleep, nutrition, the recovery process. Those things are lifelong skills. And I truly feel that the weight room is like a microcosm of life, really. It's like the perfect example of delayed gratification, but it's also one where life isn't fair sometimes. Because some people have the God-given ability. They walk in the weight room. They've never touched a weight before in their life. They can put on 225 and they're going to bench it for 10 reps. Whereas a kid who hasn't missed a weight room session in 2 years maybe isn't genetically predisposed to be able to do that. So I really feel like the weight room has those values just to educate lifelong as well. And within our program, we're really not number chasers. I feel like anymore, if you are a number chaser, like, hey, how many people can bench this or how many can squat this? If your sole focus is just chasing numbers, you're missing out on the opportunity to build relationships and just maximize the impact you have on young people, which is also why, I'm not particularly a huge fan of record boards. I think it promotes bad technique. Mount Vernon, a 400-pound squat might have a different set of expectations than what's at Gilbert and what's at a school in eastern Iowa and western Iowa. So acceptable squat form or things like that are different in different places. So, that's kind of what our program is about. It's the mission that we're after. It's, core values. One thing I mentioned on, but have a relationship plan. And for us, we want to be very intentional with our relationships, point out good behavior. One thing, we're talking about a little bit before the show, sending emails home or sending notes home. I got a hold of AEA and they printed out 100 cards with our weight room logo on it. And just like what you'd get in a regular thank you email that you'd go buy at Walmart. Well, I was able to print off 100 of them for $10. Well, then the school pays for shipping. So what do? I can write down, hey, Preston, great job this week in the weight room. I really appreciate your leadership. Been going awesome. Really looking forward to, the rest of the semester or next week. And that, takes a minute. But when young people see that and see that they're recognized, that can really give them a perk in their step. I mean, you like hearing good things. So, young people are the same way. So have a relationship plan, with your program and with your kids is one value that we really, 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 and I really, really want to emphasize in our program.
Coach, I'm just writing down some notes here at the beginning, and I just want to ask maybe just a couple more points, not to truly steal from you, but I really want to know what's more to the relationship plan. What are some of the other intentionality pieces that you're trying to put in place so that you're connecting with all the student athletes that you can?
Well, so let's go and get in the nuts and bolts. Let's look at a regular training session. So, one thing that really try and do is when kids are in there, meet them at the door. Or we have an intern now trying to coach the intern on that, as well as meet the kids at the door, say hi. Within each training session, try to go talk to the kid verbally face to face, and say their name. So when we got 60 kids in there, go around and talk to them and say, hey, how's it going? Hey, nice to have it. Before a training session, talk to them like, hey, Ty, how was the weekend? What'd you do? How was spring break? What's going on? And those small little deposits in that relationship bank can build up and play, huge later on. And then when the training session's done, so they go back and change, they come back, wait in the weight room, stand there and talk to them. And then go out of your way to talk to the ones that you don't naturally gravitate toward. We all gravitate towards certain people, but make sure you talk to each and every single student athlete and find out something about them along the way. We also have a homeroom time where if there's ever a time where I want to talk to a kid I haven't talked to in a little bit or need to just touch base with on something, maybe some corrective measures in the weight room or point out good behavior, request them down, say, hey, Johnny, you request to go see Mr. Lundt. He comes in and they're like, hey, Johnny, we're showing up a little bit late in the mornings. We want to start at 6:30. We're kind of sneaking in at 6:32, 6:33. Hey, I really need you here on time, and here's why. Not sitting the kid down and chewing him out. I'm not a fan of that. I really don't think that gains too much anymore, with young people. They want to know the why. And so those things, emails home to parents, can just be little deposits in the bank just to build those relationships, with our young people.
Well, that's an awesome list, Coach. I just finishing up all that type of stuff. I think your last point there where you talked about teaching with the why or letting them know the why behind things is such a big deal, because if you truly want to, I don't know, connect with kids. And I think back to my college experience with my strength coach. And one of the things that, like he knows the X's and O's of strength and conditioning inside and out. There's no doubt he's really, really good at that stuff. But what makes him separate himself from other people, or at least in my eyes, was that he was very, very intentional about talking to everyone and engaging with everyone and teaching them a why and trying to figure out their why behind maybe some of the things that they're doing. And what I hear when I hear other coaches or you making a specific plan to connect with student athletes, it just lights a fire underneath me, because I think that is such a great way to set those kids up for a positive experience, not only in the weight room, but then for them to build relationships with other people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally. Well, and I'll even add one more thing, like notes we sent home, like got the AEA, they printed off little stickers with our tiger head and barbell on it. I got 100 of them, and I think that was like $20, And so like those little things, just little things like that, I take the sticker, put it on their water bottle. I mean, going out of your way, even for 3 minutes to write a note, then they will go out of their way for you as well. And so
that's awesome. I think that's great, Coach. One of the next questions I'd have is, like when you are giving so much of your time and trying to do everything within strength and conditioning, I ask personally, what's some of the things that you do to help balance your time? Because one of the things, the first thing I think about is like, okay, where am I going to fit in writing, 100 extra thank yous to people? Like where do you stash that time out? Because I know you're a family man too. What's that look like for you on a daily basis?
Well, like we talked about, when you get up at 4:30 in the morning, you're in the weight room by 5. You can get a lot of things done in the morning, but you just got to be really organized in how you do that. But like something taken like notes, writing that, for example, I can write that in between, as I'm eating lunch or something. With writing programs and planning for the next week, I set out a chunk of time, on the weekend for a couple hours. I tell my wife, hey, I'm going to do this. She knows I have, my work to do. But then when I'm home, I'm home. And so, I don't do much late at night. My computer does not hardly come home at all. And if it does, it's super urgent that I need to get something done. But when I'm home, and mentally I'm home. And Coach, that is a great question, because I did not do that very well right away. Early on when having a kid and being married, and balancing is really, really hard, but you got to kind of have to have your end time with it. Because when I leave school, I want to be able to, focus and devote my family. So I get in really early, get as much stuff done as I can in there, be efficient with my time. And go back to, what needs to be done right now, and, what can wait just a little bit, which those that are really strong type A's like myself struggle with that, because, I'm a doer. I like to be busy, and doing stuff. And like I said, I don't have much for hobbies. And so, I'm either at school doing my stuff, or I'm with my kids and with my family. And that's in making your family part of it, I guess. Making your family part of the process is a big thing for me, because coaching, weight room, going to games, my family's there and with me. Like you, growing up, as a son of a teacher and a coach, I mean, you spent more hours in the weight room probably by 5 years old than some people do their entire high school career. And so like my boys have grown up just around it. So including, I try to include my family as much as possible into what we do.
Those are all great points. Stuff that I'm going to have to make sure I take to heart, man. Those are great.
So it'll still be managed because my kids aren't getting any less busy. So, it's just one of those things. You got where your priorities at. And so, that's my family's a big priority. So, if it comes down to it, I choose my family between the two.
One of the things that you mentioned in there was you're getting up early and you set aside time to program and do different things throughout the week and then also on the weekends. What are some of your favorite resources or tools or just systems that you use to optimize your workflow? Like what are some of the things that you're just making sure that you're knocking out every week and some of the tools that help you out with that?
Well, the big one that really helps with organization and timing is rack performance. And I could talk about them for a really, really long time because they have been a tool that has allowed our organization of things to go from, pretty organized to like being able to time out everything really to the second. We used to use a Title I boxing timer, which we still kind of use at times. But what rack performance allows us to do is I can do any changing I need to at home in our computer in our basement. I can use 2 projectors at once if we're running dual workouts at the same time because our rooms are a little bit bigger. And so that's one that we use it, a ton, and it's been incredible for us. So the nuts and bolts of like how we use it. We use those that are familiar with it, we use the freeform timer. We used to use the rotational timer, but for our 9-12, I use the freeform one. So basically it's pulled up right when they come in, and right when athletes come in, there's a job for them to do. So it'll say set up. And so let's say today you're coming in and set up. The first thing we're going to do is power clean. So it says set up power clean. But maybe that day we're doing power clean and then we're going to squat. So it'll come in, it'll say set up power clean, and it'll also say set up back squat. Because when they come in, we want to have a job to do, have the room organized and set up. So then when we do, blow the whistle and say go, we don't have to use a lot of time just getting bars and everything set up. So also they would say anything that we need for our ramp period. So we'll say ramp period instead of warm up. I feel like it sounds like a, better term for us, that the NSCA uses. Myself or the intern will set up at times, but sometimes you get busy during the school day, things happen where it's like, oh man, I didn't get the boxes out or the cones out or whatever tool we need for that period. But it will always list that on there. So whatever set up, it will say grab cone and then ramp period. And then when everybody's in there, we, talking to them a little bit, and then everybody's in there, we push play and go. And we, like on our 10-12 program, on there, it will show, say, the A pairing, A1, A2. And so let's say we're doing, it's a squat and an upper body pull. We're doing a pull-up. So it'll say A1 back squat. And it'll show the set, 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll show the reps, and then it will show the percentage on there. And I can talk about percentages, how we handle that, because we don't have separate sheets for kids. But it will show that on there, and then that timer counts down 2 minutes and 30 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever we're at, whatever our time constraints are. And also within there, listed on there, think like a Word document, we can show any modifications as well. So like, we could put up your choice. We're going, Coach Peterson, you're coming in. We're going to squat and upper body pull. So upper body pull choice, it's up to you. So level 1 is dumbbell row. Level 2 is pull up. Level 3 is bend over barbell row. So we'll also give choices along the way. That's also where we can differentiate a little bit in season versus out season. For example, upper body pull choice. We don't have our pitchers doing much overhead. At times. So you may say, baseball here or cross country here or football here. The base of what we do is going to be the same. in regards to like a squatting pattern. But what that allows us to do, that software, is keep track of our time during that time period, count down 2 minutes and 30 seconds, whistle blows, okay, now we did A1, we did A2, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, another whistle blows. And so that's been super beneficial for us. It's also one where we put in, where we can put in next. So, all right, next we're doing bench and posterior chain. So it'll at the bottom say next. And so like, oh, the kids are done. There's 15 seconds left. I mean, instead of standing there waiting, like what's next, they're able to see what's next. So now they can get the horns down to 6, get out the bar for RDL if they're doing that, or if they're GHD, whatever that might be. And then it is also where we put our core and neck work, or any finishers or stretch on there. And so rack performance has been huge for us, kind of taking our organization to a next level. And we'll use the rotational timer. Those that are familiar with it, aren't familiar, it's kind of like a color wheel. You can set it to 2, 3, or 4 people in a group. We use that for middle school, and that is super, super helpful when controlling tempo with them, because, if you put on the board, we're going to do a goblet squat and then a push-up and then a plank and, another movement. There's going to be a log jam of everybody doing the same thing at once. So, like, if we're going to do a dumbbell row, all the kids are going to flock to the dumbbell row right away. So we're able to tell a kid, hey, you're green, you're yellow, you're blue, you're purple. Okay, when the timer goes down, you follow your color around, because it's their first time coming in the weight room. And so teaching them flow and tempo a little bit has been really easy with using rack performance. And at first I was skeptical, because I really liked my Title I boxing timer. And I'm, those that know me, I'm not change is hard for me sometimes. So my first used it with the middle school program couple summers ago, and I was like, man, this is awesome. So we use that now for it. And if anybody's like curious about it, man, I would just try it just for a trial. We trialed it for a summer, and they're very gracious. It's super cheap. And so that's one huge tool for us that's made us a lot better. And I can change things at home. It's like, it's on a website, so it's like kind of Google Docs. It's just right there. So that's it. That's a huge one for us. And the other one, so like how we handle percentages is kind of unique, is kind of interesting. I looked at different, TeamBuildr, Train Heroic platform, ones like that, to see like, does that work for us? Would it be efficient? And what I have found is that we just have a percentage sheet. So what our sheet looks like is, I have a sheet that says early bird, and it has all my student athletes listed on there that are enrolled. It'll have their working max of squat, working max of bench or deadlift, whatever we're at, and it'll show the percentages that we're at. So the percentages that I talked about on rack performance, I would have in there, okay, first set, we're going to be at 60%. Okay, your sheet right there shows 60%, and then we're going 70%. So then it shows 70 and then 80 or whatever percentages we're at for the week. So each week I just plug in the percentages that we are for the week, reprint those sheets out, and put at the racks. So how many sheets is that? It's 2 sheets of paper at each rack. It's a front and back. So I divide it into our early bird. On the back side of that is our girls. And then on the other sheet is boys on either side. And I divide that out by which class period they're in. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. Once he's kind of organized and you just move things here and there, it's just plug and play in numbers. That's been my answer to percentages. Now, eventually, as we get bigger, maybe iPads at every rack and a separate program. But for us, this has worked, and it's worked pretty well. We went away from just regular sheets, like keeping track of each and every single one, or printing off sheets, and went to this, so that we can just be a little bit more just efficient with our time. Because I don't care, like, kid comes in and dumbbell row, we're not going to have them keep track of dumbbell row every single time, because ultimately if you're squat and bench and everything else is getting higher, you should be grabbing a bigger dumbbell for dumbbell row. And so we don't keep track of some of those other ones. We just, our core working max of our list with a working max, that's what we use. But we'll also set percentages for like barbell split squat. We'll take our squat max and we'll set a percentage. We'll put like, okay, you're 40%. So we'll just run a percentage off of that. So then they look, 40%, so my squat max is 200. Okay, 40% of that is, whatever the math is. So
80. Yes.
There you go, 80, yeah. So PE health teacher, not a math teacher. So Mr. Martinic would be really mad at me. I couldn't do that off the top of my head. So I know that's a windy answer, but those are two things that like kind of meat and potatoes of what we do and how we do things. Those two things have really, really helped. There's more to it than that, but like I said, I could talk about them for a really, really, really long time and what they do.
I like your idea with the percentage sheets. I think that's good. That's a good go between there. We still use sheets a lot of the time.
Yep.
I've kind of surveyed the kids and said, hey, are these things that you like? And a lot of them, we just finished up a cycle, not last week, but the week before. And it was just really interesting. I had multiple kids come up to me and said, man, I feel really good about filling this thing out. And so like I see value in it that way because I see a completed sheet. But, like the amount of efficiency and stuff that you're getting from the way that you're setting things up, I think is really cool. And I think it's depending on how it's set up, like they still see their progression. They still see these things. Tell me this, you said that you're a movement over maxes type of person, right? You're not chasing numbers, but you are working off percentages. Give me the rundown of how you're finding maybe their working maxes for when they're coming in the weight room, and what that looks like, how often you're doing it, and maybe just like what it looks like to go through if it's a testing week or just you do one test per week, or what's it look like for you?
That's a good question. And before I answer that, I'll say, tracking information on the sheets. The one thing that we do now to keep track of some of that stuff, because like I've seen your sheets and like what you've got, the other stuff other than the list that they're doing to keep track of, we do a lot of Google Forms. So like I can shoot out to my class like, hey, what's your stress level at? Are you eating breakfast? Are you eating after workout? What's your sleep and everything like that. So those are some of the ways that we're able to track a little bit of that. So it's kind of transitioned into that Google Form format for us, some of that extra stuff, which has been super helpful as well. So, so how we find the working max, that's really good. That's a really good question. So we'll test like normal, like we tested before spring break here. And over time, the way we frame it to the kids is that, hey, it's just like a normal workout. Think of it like a quiz on steroids. Like it's a little bit bigger than a quiz, but really you don't test each week, like, max out till failure each week, but we're still pushing ourselves each week with the rest that we do. So how do we adjust the working max? We do plus sets. And so we will, like if we're bench press is, you're hitting your percentage this week and it's a Friday and the reps are 5+, we're going, we're 4 by 5 and then it's a 5+ in your last set. That means you go until you have 1 rep left in the tank. I don't want the bar dropped. That's the one thing that our kids have done a really good job of, is that I don't want the bar crashing down on squat or bench or things like that. We want to be able to spot appropriately as well. And so like if you come in and, coach, you're under the bar and you do 225, you're supposed to do it 5 times based on your percentage, and you do it 8 times. I want to know that. And then I'm going to go in and I have my clipboard that I go around. I'm going to put, Coach Peterson, 225 by 8. And then I know when I go in to print off my sheets next week that I need to bump up your working max. And so we do that on our core lists, not each session, but it's usually once a week. We'll do one of them. It's like we're not going to do bench every single time, do a plus set, but we'll hit bench or squat or dead. And we want to make sure that, with us, like coach the kids, we're not dropping the bar. We're not going to just let the bar come crashing down. And so now, how's testing look for us? What that look like this last week? We're going to treat it like a normal training session. When I tell the kids, we're just going to keep track of our last set. We just want, and we've talked to kids about the linear progression we got in our rep scheme and what we are doing. How much they, young student athletes can really digest and understand is, another thing. But trying to tell them, as we're getting toward this testing phase, the weight is going to continue to go up as we are going, and the percentage we give are a guideline. It's not the rule. The percentage we give, we want to be the floor, but your 65% today might be a lot less than what it is, a week from now due to competitions, sleep, you're sick. So we use a percentage as, a guideline. And we tell them that we want the percentage to be the floor, but coach them up on, how the body's feeling. So the testing session, what it looks like when they come in, we're going to have a last set. And we're 2 to 4 reps when we go. I know you're 3 to 5, and that's, everybody's got their kind of rep scheme that they go to, but I cut it off at 4. And the whole reason why I cut it off at 4, was this was back when I started in Akron, and, I just cut it off at 4 because I figured 4 quarters. That's kind of how I got, the fourth quarter stopped it right there. And so I kind of like the 2 to 4 for us. And so we want to hit the reps in between there. So I'll go in over break here, and the test out scores that we can enter into rack performance, which is super nice because I would created a formula that does the conversion on there. Spits it out for me, and then I can just plug it right into my Excel sheets and print those off and put it at each rack. But our answer is doing plus sets, and then when we do test, rep scheme is going down to 4 reps, and so we just say it's 2 to 4, and we're going to treat it like a normal training session. And the kids have done a tremendous job of really buying into that over the years. Is that we're not just going to come in and we're going to test. Today is squat day. We're going to test squat. We're going to spend 50 minutes just doing our squat, and that's it. Because actually, I think you set up kids for failure in that case, because you almost overemphasize it a little bit and de-emphasize everything else of what training is. Because nobody was ever offered a college scholarship based on their max out score, and there's a lot of value just to continuing a training session, a training cycle, in my opinion.
No, I agree with that, and that's kind of the struggle that I've kind of looked at.
Yeah.
At Northwest, Joe Quinlan does at different times, like right before spring ball, they'll do like a true testing type of deal where they're doing it's a quad score, but it's not true lifts other than hang clean. It's like a vertical jump, a broad jump, a 40-yard dash, and an overhead med throw. Like that's their testing. But other than that, he will test one thing per week, and it's kind of on a rotation. And it's similar to what you're talking about. Okay. It's not like a true testing out, but what it is, it's finding your next working set, and then you just go into the rest of your workout. So it's not like it's just like it becomes a heavy day, that was close to maximal effort, but still leaving some in the tank, and you never have to take time to actually test, and you probably understand what I'm saying, but I don't know if I'm conveying it well enough. I find a lot of value in that. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that within my system. And currently we run a modified APRE. It's based off of reps, something that Mark Watts had put on Elite FTS. And I think Gary Schofield might do some sort of variation of it too. But it originally stems from Brian Mann's work. And I think what I can do is kind of put it exactly into what you're doing and make it flow pretty nicely. Right now, we do have somewhat of a testing week. But I think, I think there's some value in being able to be ready for the game, right? The competition. You know what I'm talking about? Yep. Like each week you got
to show up on game day.
You have to show up on game day. So I see a little bit of value in having testing like that. But at the same time, like our just like you said, we're not getting scholarships in the weight room. I think the weight room helps immensely with the process of becoming a better athlete, but when you take time to test rather than train, are we becoming a better athlete? And that's you bring up some good points there. It makes me think a little bit about where I'm at and what I'm doing to say, is this truly the best way to go?
Well, Coach, you know, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. If there was one way that, that worked and was better and above all else, everybody would do it. It's kind of like, look at how offensive has evolved in football. I mean, there's not one answer. It's, you just evaluating your situation and circumstances and, and going from there and getting the best plan of attack, going ahead. But yeah, I understand what you mean. Like it's, got to show up on game day, but also in the same breath, each workout is a game day. And which is one thing we really started emphasizing last summer was this is practice, because I think sometimes that, just young people are even in weight room as part of practice, as well. And so kind of that practice mentality, is one thing that last summer, like how, with summertime, you emphasize some of those leadership things.
Yep.
We have a different, ours is boxed a little bit differently, but same concept. We really emphasized, just a practice mentality. Like this is practice. We want to be, focused on the task at hand when we are going, but just that mental engagement. Because we can physically prepare the kids to move, but mentally they got to prepare themselves for that process of work for that day.
Yeah, I think it's going around strength and conditioning networks right now is the term intent, right? Or purpose, and how you're attacking the work that you're doing at hand. I think there is a lot to be said in that, because I mean you can go through and do A, B, C, D, and you can go through and do A, B, C, D to the best of your ability with the intent to be the best that you can be, and it's completely different, So I think it's good to really hash that out and what that looks like, and give the student athletes maybe a model to see how that should look, in their day to day. And when you say each workout is game day, or we're going to treat it like practice, I think that's a good visual for them to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You've been at Gilbert for 8 years. You've got a lot of things going in the right way. You've got some systems that are set in place. You're an organized dude. You get out and you check what other people are doing, and you bring it back, and like all of this to say, there's got to be some hurdles or some challenges that you're dealing with. That you're every day you're just like, okay, this is one of them that I'm going to attack, or this is a hurdle in the past that we might have had. What's one of those challenges that you've had, and then maybe one of the solutions that you've came up with to make sure that you're tackling it in the right way?
Well, I'll give you a couple. And actually, you hit on one I even thought of too, is my time management, how to balance that. So actually, if any of the coaches out there have really good ways to balance time, I'd love to hear those as well. But over time, there's been a lot of hurdles, but almost sometimes hurdle sounds like you can be taken as a negative connotation. Not all are a bad thing. I really feel like hurdles or challenges or opportunities to either educate someone or be educated yourself. Two that kind of come to mind for us recently are probably a lot of people can relate to is game day training on game days and female athlete programming. And so, the first one, what to do on a game day? Because, right now we've got pretty much all our athletes during the day. And so you're a varsity basketball player, you're playing Tuesday, Friday. That's actually when your lift is. So what are you going to do? And, we've tried a couple different things over the last years, and seen different things. Do you stretch? Do you core? Do you foam roll? Do you blow up the arms? Do you do a completely separate workout? And have tried all of those things. And the best solution that we've come up with is that it's the same workout, but the expectation is the bar. So if you're a varsity basketball player coming in and we're doing squat that day, you're going to put on the bar, and that's the expectation. And we got light bars too for the ladies when they come in, if they so choose. But the expectation is the bar. And the reasoning behind that is it doesn't disrupt the flow of the workout when we're going, but also we're still training the movement. Like we're still training, the squat pattern when we are going. And actually, a lot of kids will still do, a fair amount of their plan that day, their weight. Based on the competition, they may scale back a little bit. But if you don't train on a game day, like in some of those cases, and you're a varsity basketball player and you're Tuesday, Friday, because that's when your PE class is, you missed out an entire week of training. So we can still train the movement when we were going. Doesn't disrupt the flow. So really the only way you could tell, if you walked into our weight room and we've got a track meet on Monday, the only way you could tell is be like, man, that kid's only doing the bar. It sure looks like he could do a whole lot more than that. Be like, well, he's game day. Oh, okay. And so that has allowed the training environment for us to be a lot better. So that's one that we found an answer to after different trial and error of some things. And the other one is female programming. And, there was a time for us when the girls were really nervous to use the bar. And I think probably a lot of people who program for female athletes could probably say the same thing. And even still, I think we'll get nervous. So when we first started, we wanted to include the bar each workout for one thing. Now, what that started off was inverted row. So it wasn't even like bench press or squat or things like that. That's what it started off as. And they also preferred, and still do prefer unilateral versus bilateral for their squat, which actually I, don't mind that at all. But it's not really the case now in regard to being afraid of the bar. It's something where we had to meet the athletes where they were. You got to check your ego at the door a little bit. And the other thing that has improved along the way is just the belief of what strong is. The standard of strength has continued to improve in the room of what the girls are. And so, for example, you used to be a beast if you could put on 25 pounds on each side and squat it. Well, that's not the case at all anymore. Mm-hmm. So the perception of what strong, is continuing to improve. And the same thing for guys too. It used to be a case where, years ago, a split squat, they put 95 pounds on for that, and that was a lot. And, it's finally coaching them up and like, guys, just like, don't compare yourself to other people in the room. You have to compare yourself to what you can actually be, and where your potential is. So those are two things that for me, that we've had that we feel like we've had a good answer to. And it's not a hurdle in a bad way. I mean, especially the female stuff, like just informing them on proper training and the benefits to training. And coach, I'm telling you, one thing that really helps is our female coaches are very active. And so it's not like they don't touch the bar at all either. Like they have spent some time in the weight room doing things. And so, actually for me to sit here and say it's been me, would be incorrect. Our female coaches are super supportive. Our male coaches are too, but like in this case, females programming, our female coaches are super bought in, super supportive, and they spend time themselves training and being active. It looks different now that you're not, when you're older, you're not training for sports, you're training to be healthy. But they train as well. And that helps immensely, with their buy-in. And actually one before I came to Gilbert, one short one, when I was in Akron, I had a 400 square foot weight room and one squat rack. And so over time we added 5 more, and we had an indoor track. But I'd tell, like, there's a lot of things that you can do, if you're just organized, and just be creative. I mean, your space, coach, you use your space in a tremendous way. Like that's a small space, but you maximize every single square inch of that room. And so that's impressive for me to see. It's not as impressive. Like I got our weight room is almost 4,000 square foot. That's really not that impressive. What's impressive and I enjoy seeing is like what you're doing there in that smaller amount of space. Like, man, you're crushing it, and you got a space that's significantly smaller than this. That's what I enjoy seeing. That's really cool. See the creativity and how to maximize your space in that way.
I appreciate that little shout out there. There's a lot of times where like I think about the space that we have and the amount of time that went into just figuring out the best way to get things to move and process and stuff. And the kids love the space that we have now. And that's the coolest part, is just being able to provide a space for them that they feel like they are being invested in, and they have something nice to be able to use, like that's fun. Going back to your in-season stuff, that's really interesting to me. I went through the same stuff you were going through, man. Is like, okay, what if we have an in-season athlete for all 4 seasons? In Iowa, we play baseball and softball in the summer. So it's like we have, maybe it's a football or volleyball player and then basketball player, and then they go right into track, and then it's baseball or softball. Like if you have, and I'm at a size of school where we have a ton of kids that do that. If you're out for one sport, most likely you're out for 2, 3, or 4 of them. And so it's really an interesting thing to think about, is like, okay, how are we going to progress this athlete from 9th grade all the way through 12th? And what you're talking about is becoming movement efficient. And our setup is similar but different in that I don't tell them that the bar is the expectation. I just tell them that whatever they feel good, so that they are primed and ready to go that night. Their expectation is still that they're going to do all the movements, but they get to choose their weights all the way through. And for some people, they just do the regular workout because that's what they want to do, and they might not get that much playing time or whatever. Their emphasis might be football when it's baseball season, or flip flop the other way. It might be football season and their emphasis is baseball. It's like, so there's like just a lot of variables there. And I think that's one of the better solutions that I found at the high school level, where you have so many multi-sport athletes, is to say, you know what, our in-season movements, we're still pushing, we're still pulling, we're still, doing the foundational movements. Our load just changes. And I think that has to be something that is, progressed in the right way and explained to our student athletes and parents in the right way, so that they understand, like, it is very, very important that when you're a 9th grader, you come in, and by the time you're a senior, you've developed the right way, and that you can do the 3 things that you want to do. The things I remember right now is to prevent injury, to increase performance. And the last one is to have, a healthy lifestyle the rest of your life. Well, hopefully those are giving us the route for that. So that's a long-winded thing to say, man. I connect well with what you're saying with that.
Yeah, no, the Gameday thing is a really interesting one to answer. And it used to be a case where, a lot of our teams would lift as a group after practice or something like that. I feel very strongly that you're going to get more out of a training session at 9:00 in the morning of a game day than a 5:30 session after a really long pick any sport practice.
Right.
You get tons more out of that. And, the famous story of what Ben Johnson was that squatting 600, then going breaking the 100-meter dash. That's a story I've told multiple times. Taking out the steroids and everything, with them. But you're right. It's meeting the kids where they're at, saying, here's our minimum expectation of what it is. If you want to go more, you'll be fine. And educating them on, if you're not mentally comfortable, then don't add weight. Physically, you will be fine. I promise you. Okay. I'm not here to hurt you. I want, we've mentioned to our kids multiple times, if we've done a rant period, a warm-up period, and we're not mentally engaged, I stop when we start over and I say, it's my responsibility that we're mentally engaged, because this room here is meant to, we need to walk out healthy, because if Johnny Superstar gets hurt doing something, he can't play in a basketball game that night or run in a meet, that's on me. And so I got to make sure that they're walking out healthy. So it's like, tell them, I'm here to help you. So here's what you can do if you want to. So mentally, if that's a hurdle to jump over, just go to the bar. But if you want to do more, I promise you, you'll be fine. And, the kids, I think when you approach it that way, just the explanation of it, they have understood it better. And when the choice is in their hands.
No, I think that too. Just to have the autonomy to choose what you're doing, it goes a long way. Kind of like what you're talking about with your programming, you have the foundational movements, but you allow them the choice. That's something that's kind of cool too. Just because they have the autonomy within their own workout to choose what they think they want to do, how much more buy-in do you get when you get to have that say in things?
Right, because really, like, what's the difference, bent over row or barbell row or dumbbell row? I don't care. Like, whichever you get, you can choose. Here's what, and that also, it's an opportunity to educate on what the movements are. What does push mean? What does pull mean? What does posterior chain? Like, what's a squat pattern? Like, unilateral and bilateral. It's like we get to, like, use those to educate. Not as, not like to, get a degree in it. You're not teaching that way, but just to educate in the basic understanding of what we are doing in the weight room and why we are doing it, where it fits in. So,
Coach, this is, the namesake of the show, and each podcast that I try to put out there, I'm asking this question, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say, because you've talked about some of the things that you're doing with relationship plans and being very organized and that type of stuff. But what would you say is a unique way you're making the big time where you're at?
Well, probably what's unique about us is that right now, each athlete that we have in school is in a strength class all year long. So if you play softball and you only play softball, August 24th or whatever it is, you're in the weight room and going all year long. So when I tell it, the first, a lot of people, especially, other coaches, S&C coaches, are like, that's awesome. And then the next one is like, how did that happen? And it's an 8 year, kind of an 8 year process. Now I'll try and stay out of the weeds as much as possible on this, but would give you the kind of the basic outline of how we got there. So, 8 years ago, there was only one, I only had one strength class, and actually it was called Fitness PE. And at that point in time, we just had implemented 2 day per week in season training. So all teams in season had to train 2 days a week, which was more than what had really been done before. Now, up to that point, there wasn't much, consistent in season training. There was summer training. And it's also important to understand that the strength program wasn't non-existent when I got there. There were certainly pieces already there. We just needed to take those pieces and fit the pieces together and create some consistent programming. Like, for example, in years past when we got there, like our girls trained at the current middle school, which had 3 racks. That's not very much. So our coaches, Coach Deal and Coach Johnson, Coach Kautman, they did a great job with that, but they needed more space. So we got a plan together to use the high school one, which our old high school one had 8 racks in it. And it was about 800 square feet of operating space, but we had a gym that was close for us. So what did it look like? So year one, we did boys workouts in the morning, having 8 racks, go boys in the morning because boys don't take long to change and get ready. So 6 a.m. we'd have boys off season. Then I would teach health or, regular gym classes during the day, one fitness class, but it wasn't really athletically motivated. And then after school it'd be girls off season. And then there would be in-season teams till, 6 p.m. ish. So, girls soccer and then, boys track and girls track. And, I would have a schedule throughout, and there was a lot of stuff after school. It's also important to know, that, I wasn't married and didn't have kids at that point in time. So life looked a lot different. And I didn't have to stay around at that point in time to coach those sessions, but it was really, really important to me to grow the program. And so, that went really well, right away. And, we started other stuff too. We started a newsletter with outstanding lifters. We posted attendance, started a reward system, sweatshirts, stocking caps, put their names on it, for 90% attendance or better. Kids really liked that. And it was focusing on who was there rather than who wasn't there. And I think that's really important because that also puts you as a coach in a positive mindset. If you're focused on the ones who are there and go find positive things, you're going to have a much better day. But if you're focused on the kid, oh, man, this kid, he didn't show up for morning workouts. Where's he at? He's always skipping. We're counting on him. But yet you've got 25, 30, 40, 50 other guys who are there and busting their butt. And you're focused on the one person who isn't there or 2 people. I think you're doing a disservice to the kids who are there busting their butt. So, we focused on that. We started a middle school program. We did morning and adult training. And, you know, some of those things we still carry on today. Some we've adapted. Year two, we reorganized our PE offerings, created a freshman strength class that's unique. We have all freshmen for the last 6-7 years. We have had all freshmen second semester are in the weight room twice a week. And that really goes along with one of the biggest things that is important to us, and that is lifelong health. Because with this semester, there's going to be students in there who will never play a sport, who will never, step foot into the weight room again, maybe during their high school days, but at some point in time will want to get into fitness or working out or getting in shape or when they get old. And if they have a positive experience right away in the weight room, that can, maybe let them in a little bit closer to, coming, just a positive experience in the weight room. So that's been a big one for us, having all freshmen in a strength PE. Really big moment. Our third year, we opened a brand new weight room, and that weight room was possible because of all the time and the effort that many, many other people, I am one of hundreds of people that, put time and effort into the old weight room. So we went from one that was 8 racks and less than 1,000 square feet to about 4,000 square feet, and then 16 racks. And interest just kind of grew at that point in time. The biggest thing at that point in time was it's a nice, neat, clean weight room, so more inviting for, female population. And by golly, we're going to keep it that way. And so one thing if nowadays, if kids, I'm doing air quotes, forget their PE clothes for a day or something, and they just, are adamant they're not going to work out. I said, okay, well, here's a backpack vacuum where you can vacuum the weight room for us. That'll be your PE credit for the day. So, they got to wear T-shirts. We want to keep it nice and neat and clean in there. But also the big weight room allowed us to train 2 teams at once in there. We were able to eliminate after-school weight training and start speed school for our off-season athletes, which has been a really, really good thing for us. So it just kind of grew and grew and grew. And last spring, we realized about 80% of our athletes were already in a strength class. It was about 45 out of 60 boys track, about half of our girls track, just a touch more, about every boys basketball and football and volleyball. And so that kind of makes it tough because now you're balancing we know we need a train in season. We know it's good for us. All our ones that are motivated are already in a PE class. So what do we have left? We have left ones who maybe are nervous, they're inexperienced, a little apprehensive. Well, that's tougher. So now you're asking after a long practice to stay afterward and train, or do they not train? They're missing out. So crunched the numbers, looked at, had conversations with coaches, approached our AD, principal, counselor, sat down, did just a lot of number crunching and said, hey, we're kind of, what do you think? We got an opportunity. Here's what it could look like in every athlete during the day. And what do you think? And we only have 1.5 PE teachers. It's not like we have 3 or 4 PE teachers. And so I teach health half the day and I'm in the weight room the other half. And so I have the majority of the weight room classes. But we've got every athlete in there. And it was kind of one of those things where we were at an awkward point where it's like, let's go all in or let's go all out because, we need to do something, within there because some kids are missing out. And, just by training in season, is really tough as well because, you'd only get maybe 8 to 12 workouts, training sessions during a season. Well, because you got meets and everything like that. So, you've got some athletes who will continue on, but you have others, that's their only training throughout the year is those 8 to 12 sessions. Well, in some ways, it's almost better if they just go home and get extra rest because you're retraining, you're reteaching, and they're not with it. And the really cool thing has been this year, we knew the kids who were a little apprehensive right away. And so that's why I went out of my way to try to make them feel like it's like the weight room was special. Like they were, I was happy that they were there, go up and give them a shoulder nudge. Hey, how's it going? Hey, and after a couple weeks, I'm like, see, this ain't so bad, is it? And, a few of them be like, oh yeah, it's not my favorite, but yeah, it's okay. And then there'd be, there's another kid I'm thinking off the top of my head. He came up after 2 weeks and he's like, hey coach, I think I'm doing something wrong. I'm not sore anymore. I was like, well, that's what happens when you train consistently. You don't get sore. And so he's like, oh man, that's awesome. Yeah. Now, that's been a huge thing for us, getting every kid in, during the day. And there's absolutely no way it would be possible if we didn't have coaches pulling the rope in the same direction. And over time, we've done coaches clinics, had conversations, and, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't apprehension going into it. But our coaches recognize the value of training. Many of them have children who are in athletics right now, 7, 12, and many are still very active themselves. So my job in all this, I made my job harder by doing it. I didn't get paid anymore. I made my job a lot harder, but I essentially am an assistant coach for each program. And so I need to over-communicate information to them at all times of what's going on, and they communicate information to me as well. So that's how we got to that point. Now, what it looks like during the day and the execution of it, is another thing. But that's how we got from point A to point B here, and it's been a really good thing for us this year. And we're not number chasers, but I keep track of numbers, and our numbers are higher than they've ever been during our time here. But we don't emphasize that aspect of it. So that's how we got to every point where every athlete is in weight room PE.
That's awesome. I think it's great. That's all year long too. So for us, you have to be in a PE class, but it's only one semester that you have to be in it. And we'll have students that take it both semesters. And every athlete is in strength and speed, but it could be only for one semester. And the other semester, they're lifting with their team after practice or before school or whenever the other option is. So for us, it's an interesting way for us to go. I've looked into trying to get this a full year, and it just, with the timing of our classes and all that type of stuff, we don't feel like it's an option yet until we would get a more square footage, right? So where we can have more kids within each class to maximize the times that we have. Because right now we max out at 27 athletes, and we can't go above 27, and that makes it tougher scheduling wise. So I think in the future it might be an option if we ever get more square footage. But until then, man, I love hearing what you got going on, and I think one of the things that I'm doing is just marking down like little goals that we can reach for in the future, because there is no doubt. When you train 8 to 12 times in season, and that's the only training that you're getting, that's not training. You're not getting, you're not getting anything out of that as an athlete. Yeah. So it's almost like you're wasting your team's time, your coach's time, your strength coach's time. It just, and it's not, I don't want to frame it like I don't want to be there for the kids, but I think truly I'd rather them be in there more for them to get something out of it than less and not get anything out of it. But we have to stick around longer for them to not get anything out of it.
So you said you run a modified block. We do as well. Are you like every other day PE, or do students have every day PE for you?
Every day. So for the whole semester, we will have our classes. We'll see them every day. Obviously, the modified block makes it a little bit different. So I say every day, but 4 out of 5 days we have them.
Yep. Yeah. So that we do too. And so I'll explain here how we've got ours. Which those that don't understand a modified block are going to be like, "What the heck is he talking about?" Because it is challenging to understand right away. But we are every other day PE. So if every student athlete is 2 times a week, like each week. So they're either 2-day or 4-day. And so just talking about the 2-day athletes, 1 week they'll have 2 42-minute class periods. And the next week they'll have 1 42-minute and 1 85-minute class period. So our blocks are Wednesday, Thursday. So 1 week they'd be Monday, Wednesday. So Monday is 42 minutes, Wednesday is 85 minutes. And then the next week, the 2-day kid is Tuesday, Friday. Tuesday, 42 minute, Friday, 42 minute. And it sounds like a really short time. And some guys out there can be like, how the heck can you get anything accomplished in that period of time? Well, you can, but you have to be super organized. You have to be extremely efficient with what you're doing. Now, some student athletes will choose the 4-day as well, and so they'll go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, or Thursday if their block day ends up being that period. But we go heavy on the ones that would fit for Wednesday. They'll go 4 days a week, which, going back to our programming, like that's where Rack Performance helps us to stay organized big time. And our early bird, with 16 racks, 3 at a rack, we've, 48 kids in there, and we got enough space where we feel confident enough getting 4 at each one in there. And then we got enough eyes in the room, I feel like, as well. But even with the 2-day kids 2 days a week, people will, be like, man, how are you getting anything done? Well, if you're super organized, you're super efficient, you train all year long, I mean, you can get a lot of things done during that period in time. And I mean, we're able to get an A, B, and a C pairing. So, the 2-day kid, like we just finished, they're going to hit, right away. I'm going to jump squat them. I'll clean the 4-day kid. They'll power clean, but I can't be efficient with our time with the other kids doing power clean. So there's like 2-day kid, they'll power clean. We'll get in a 3-by of, like a squat and a pull, and we'll get a 3-by bench and a hinge like that. So we have to be super efficient, super organized when we're going. But they get it done. The kids do a great job. And having all the athletes in there allows for more check-ins. I can check in on soreness and sleep and nutrition. Like nutrition, oh my gosh, kids don't, at least we got about 75% of our kids eating breakfast, which is good. But we're still about half as far as eating something afterward. And so actually, if anybody out there has any ideas on nutrition to get kids afterward, man, those are things that I would love to hear. That's an answer. Everywhere I go, I ask that question, and nobody's been able to come up with a great answer for that. Like, how do we make sure that afterwards that we're getting fuel in the body on those things? And the other thing with block days, it's an opportunity to expand on topics for us, to hit on some of those, the important nutrition and sleep, or just even training knowledge. I took one time and talked about the stretch shortening cycle. I mean, just explain it a little bit, like to understand the why. That's an area we want to continue to develop, but just getting into the why of training, and talking about, here's our squat menu. Like here's what squatting patterns are. Here's what bilateral and unilateral mean. So, that's what our modifier, we go every other day. So if we put, 32 kids in a class period, first period, 1 day, 32 the second day, that's 64 total kids. And so we're able to maximize, the number of student athletes that can come in there. And like I said, wouldn't necessarily work for everybody, but it's worked well for us. And being in there. So, and we do have a number of 4-day kids that will go 4 days. So we have a separate, programming for them. And if kids want to come in extra periods, they can. If they want to take another PE, they can as well too. They can go play pickleball, in another PE. So that's what it's like for us.
What would you say would be, like, what is the opposite of that? So if they're only a 2-day person, what are they doing during that hour on the other couple days that they would have?
So great question. So I'll try to buzz through it, quick outline. So like, the other 2 days for them would be a power clean. We're going to do a unilateral single leg squat. I'm going down our list.
I'm sorry. I said that weird probably. Okay. So if it's a 2-day person, opposed to a 4-day, what are they doing for their class schedule on the opposite days? Then?
Oh, gotcha. Oh, class schedule. Very well. Certain ones are opposite of choir, so they would be in choir, or study hall. Okay. So that's what one of those. That's what they they are. There's probably some other, like, college class or, similar stuff during that point in time. But those are the two ones that I can really think of. That would be
Right.
choir's opposite or study hall. We have some big study hall numbers. We've got to find an answer to that. But in what, a handful of kids, maybe a kid who maybe academically struggles just a little bit or needs a little bit more time. He'll be on he'll be in his 2-day PE, but he'll ask study hall teacher, hey, can I come out today? And be like, hey, are you off the missing work list? No, then you can't. So it's a little motivation for them to come down as well. But no, it'd be study hall.
Yeah. Awesome. Here's what I'd like to do, Coach. I think what I want to do, because I know you have a huge section on summer programming. I was just thinking of the options of how I could get this done in a way that coaches they'd want to come back and listen. And so what I think I want to do, and I'll say it right now for our listeners, is I'm going to get on the phone with Coach Lundt sometime again soon, and maybe a couple other coaches, and we'll talk specifically about how they set up their summer program. Because I know we're getting to that point during spring break here. I'm making sure all my programming's lined up for the summer. I think it'd be an interesting time just to reflect on what a lot of coaches are doing, so that you can maybe think through what you guys are doing as listeners during the summer program. Coach Lundt, you up for that?
Absolutely. I think that would be an awesome discussion. Go over summer programming and talk about that, because a lot of us are busy during the summer, so we can't really, connect and go watch somebody else. So
right,
sign me up. Let's do it.
Okay, I think that's the way that we're going to roll with that. Then let's go into our 5 finisher questions here, and then right after that, you'll be able to give your contact information for people to reach out to you, because you've given out a ton of awesome information, and there's more questions to dig into. I've got my list here for another time that I'm going to ask you, but I just want people to be able to connect and get to know more of like what your situation looks like and how they can get to that point. Let's start with these questions, and then we'll give that information out.
All right, let's do it.
All right, Coach, what's your favorite book?
My favorite book, any book, is the Bible. But the strength book, or like strength conditioning, the last one I read is CEO Strength Coach, and I'm excited to read Weight Room Wisdom by Ron McKeefer. I don't have a favorite, probably Mike Boyle, probably if you forced me to, but usually whatever book I'm currently reading, is my favorite.
No, I like those options. You got some good ones there. I was just giving my strength coach in college a hard time. He's one of the 99 on there. And I said, so what's the deal?
Nice. That's awesome.
I said, do you get a free copy or something? Or what? He's like, yeah, I'm getting a free copy sent my way. So I'm excited for him. I can't wait to read his section. And actually, I can't wait to read the whole book, but to read his section specifically, see what he put down in there. Who's a person that has influenced you the most?
Probably as a teacher and a person, as my first high school principal. As a teacher, Derek Briggs at Akron-Westfield there. That's as a teacher and a person, he's influenced me the most. Early on in strength conditioning, Zach Matters, who's up at USF now. He's going to be like, holy cow, I haven't heard from Graham in a long time. He got me introduced into training when I was in middle school, and then clinicked with me a lot when I was at Akron-Westfield. His dad was my head football coach for a couple of years in high school, so he's had a big influence on me. And recently is Jake Moore, who's on our coaching staff as well. He's tremendously influenced me, in continuing to grow and evolve and develop. As far as like authors and everything, Mike Boyle, I think is some good stuff out there. That I read on. There's a lot of things, but there's a few names for you.
No, those are awesome people. Thank you. How about a favorite quote?
Oh man, I'm a quote person. I'm a quote junkie. I like them. First one would be my license plate. That's 1 John 4:19. That's we love because he first loved us. But the other one, you can't get much done in life if you only work on days when you feel good. So like tomorrow morning, not going to matter if I feel good or not, but my children are going to be up and I'm going to have to parent my butt off. And one, my dad emailed me a long time ago, kind of going through some, struggles and everything. And he said, it's never crowded along the extra mile. So I'm a quote junkie. I like them. That's a little quirk that I have.
I like that. That's great. How about if you had 15 minutes to train yourself, what are you doing?
Oh, well, some mornings are kind of like that if I'm behind. I'm gonna throw one out for you that people are like, what is that? Eccentric front squat, and I'm gonna pair that with a pull up. And then if I have time, I'll do maybe some overhead press and leg curl. And going back to like the front squat, so I've got some lower disc issues in my back, probably from throwing 10,000 hay bales when I was younger. So I don't put the bar much on my back anymore, and I don't, throw on 400 pounds. So, to get a little extra work in, I just go down on an 8 count, and that's how I move the bar.
I like it. Always finding a way to work around, man. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Last one here, Coach. Who's a small school coach who's killing it and deserves a shout out?
Yeah, a couple that's been at it a while. I already mentioned Jake and his influence. He's one. And where he's been at. Tracy Ryle at Ames is crushing it. And Brad Zelenovich at Southeast Polk. Neither one of those guys are like, Twitter guys or things like that put a lot of stuff out there. Those are two just, lunch pail guys. They go to work. And so I've learned a lot from both of them. And, a couple up-and-comers that'll be there. You might get me at Anthony Centennial. Has got a really high ceiling for him. And then Jared Kaburski. He does middle school over at Woodward Granger. And both those guys spent some time around our program at Gilbert. And I, spend time talking to, we on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. So there's man, I tell you, Coach, there's a lot of great coaches out there doing a lot of great things, a lot of small school guys.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about this show so much. And Gage asking for me to help come on and do this is because now I can connect with coaches around the nation that are just giving everything they got at the spots that they are. And I think there's so much value in that and so much that they can give back to every student athlete that they're working with. So very, very awesome stuff, Coach.
Yeah, the amount of stuff that you've taken away, I mean, that's awesome. The conversations that you had and then the off-air conversations of just things that you've been able to take away to your program. I mean, I'm jealous of that. That's really cool. That's like your professional development right there. That's really awesome.
Gage said when he started this thing, he's like, selfishly, I just want to learn. I want to connect with these people and learn as much as I can. I said, well, count me in. I'm ready for it. Let's do it. So.
See, there you go. No, that's making it big time. That's where, that's making it big time where you're at is, going out and getting other people. And, it's a great way to steal information. The greatest coaches are the best thieves.
There you go. More quotes for you.
Yeah.
All right, Coach, if people want to connect with you, reach out to you, what's the best way?
Probably email is the best. It's LUNTG, LUNDTG, at gilbertcsd.org, or just shoot me a text or give me a call, 712-490-3940. I'm on Twitter. I'm getting better at Twitter. I'm not a huge Twitter guy, but I know it's a great way to promote your program, and it's Tiger and then 2 underscores and then strength is our Twitter. I don't have Instagram or, Facebook. I just probably do those things, but those, talk about time management. I've cut a lot of those things out, and I'd rather spend time playing Candyland with my kids than on Facebook.
Perfect. Coach, I appreciate all the time and effort you put into this and just taking the time on your spring break to talk to me. Please, if you ever need anything, just reach out, and I'm hoping some people reach out to you and ask for more information. I'm looking forward to doing this summer program talk with you and a few other coaches.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Coach. I really appreciate it.